The parade through New York is the celebratory parade for the returning Apollo astronauts, and so there's a lot of footage. There's home movie recordings of it, there are a lot of photographs of it, and there's some wonderful detail from it.
It was pretty exciting time. Space flight had just occurred for the first time. There was youth rebellion.
Hell no, we won't go!
Where we start, Indiana Jones finds himself living in relative anonymity in the world. It is a time where no one really believes in heroes like Indiana Jones anymore. And the world has, in a sense, moved on.
He's living alone in a not very elegant New York apartment. He's dispirited. He's retiring as a professor. He's cynical. He's hurt. But the circumstances that are about to befall him lead to a great adventure in which there's a degree of redemption, but renewal as well.
Indiana Jones, back in the saddle.
I wanted to give the audience what they wanted most right up front. And so we indulge in this kind of Indiana Jones classic experience. And then we hit the brakes. We come to find him 70 years old, a little less than inspired. The world has changed around him.
It's a really strong cut from this whole backstory piece that we do in 1944, and then slam, we're in 1969. There's nothing gentle about it.
I felt we needed to explain where he was, and I felt that the idea that since we last saw him, he suffered a loss, one that may have robbed him of some of his dreams or disillusioned him.
We're trying to communicate where he lives, how he lives. There's loads of little hidden details.
So it is obviously a very characterful set. He's an academic. It possibly used to be a marital home. His son died in Vietnam, and he has great regret that he ever went off to war.
There are two pieces on the wall that are taken directly from Indy's father's house that we see in Last Crusade. There's an illuminated manuscript window piece, and then there's also an image of Lily from the Lion's Head.
Scotland is not only a beautiful place that also has many streets that could pass for New York City, but they're also really friendly to filmmakers. So we could shut down some giant avenues for almost a mile.
There we were in Glasgow, but it felt like Manhattan.
The cars add a lot of flavor. We've got a TV car, followed by our hero parade car, which is a Chrysler. Beyond that, we've got police cars, we've got police bikes, ambulances. I mean, you name it, we've thrown it all together, and it looks absolutely amazing.
The New York sequence up in Glasgow was huge in scope. For as much planning as we did, you can't walk into a downtown metropolitan area and just sort of take it over for 3 months. So there was that huge pressure for that sequence.
That was one of the highlights of my experience on this film. The wonderful art directors created these storefronts and wonderful pieces on the street. I felt transported because of the wonderful work they did.
We always begin with the reference, and then we work with the art directors. We had protest posters, advertising, and each sign has got to be made individually. But then we think about the aging of them. It's building a world, it's world creation, and it's extraordinary.
The first day we were here, it truly felt like it was a carnival and it was a real parade. The sheer number of people, and there are over 1,000 people here, with the military band, the brass band, the cheerleaders, the energy you could just feel buzzing on the street.
Sorry.
Killing us!
Helena Shaw is Indy's goddaughter. Indy was an old friend of her father's. He's her only connection to the past. She needs him from a mercenary point of view and also from an emotional point of view, but she wouldn't really want to admit the latter, even to herself.
Jim Mangold said to me, write a theme for Helena that's like some woman from the 40s or the 30s. She's an adventuress with lovers here and there.
all the while doing all these things looking ravishingly beautiful. This is a kind of femme fatale that doesn't exist anymore in films.
Phoebe is just an amazing talent. She's unlimited. Who better to have Harrison jockeying with than someone with all that skill? When Harrison hurt his shoulder,
I heard it was because he was punching a Nazi. At least his shoulder went out doing something good.
I ended up in the middle of a movie recovering from a shoulder operation. But it's okay. We used the time well.
Starting without him was surreal. I was working with Mike Massa, his brilliant stunt double. I walked behind Mike for about a day. And I think that was quite a nice little warm-up.
There we go. Now this is me.
Mike is literally like a younger version of Harrison. With a little help from us, we're able to push him like really close.
I find out whether his face will open my phone.
Oh, there you go. So I study him all the time. There's little key things he does that I try to mimic when I can.
Mike is very good at what he does. We have a lot of confidence in each other.
it's an extension of him and his performance. If you make a career as a stunt performer, most of the time your job is to make the actor look more athletic. Harrison's attitude is he doesn't want you to make him look more athletic. He wants you to make him more of a character, more of a human. The joy of having him back and the joy of being back in the saddle, as they say, was of course palpable for everyone.
He doesn't come back like at 100%. He comes back at like 130%.
That's why I love this kind of series, because it's not just action for action's sake. There's a strong character context for the action.
Adam Stockhausen, our production designer, built an entire New York subway station and a length of track on the Bond stage at Pinewood because we had to get the horse galloping so fast. So it was just literally running the length of the stage through this tubular set we built so we could actually drive on the stage with an electric subway car.
I'm having more fun than I really should. So don't tell anybody.
Helena is funny and she's irreverent. And I think that that allows the audience to actually see him in a slightly different light through her point of view, which is fun.
I thought Phoebe was a great choice. She's a very unique individual, quite brilliant as an actor and a writer. It was really a thrill to work with her.
The choice was so obvious. For Harrison and me, it was clear that we should cast her even before we had started writing. We both felt she'd be ideal. There was no one else we had in mind. When Jez and John Henry and I were writing the script, we were only writing it, thinking of her voice.
You don't recognize me, do you?
Whatever I did, I apologize.
It's Helena.
Wombat.
Wow, I haven't heard that in a while.
One of the joys and one of the hopes you have for every movie is that there's chemistry, a kind of music between your actors. I really hope for that between Helena and Indy. You need your actors to be playing off each other unselfconsciously, unworried, and they had a great dynamism together.
It was actually kind of a relief that the first scene was in a bar because it made it feel quite a bit more relaxed.
She was nervous, but it worked perfectly for the film. She's running a con on me. What nervousness she may have felt is perceived as the nervousness of somebody that's running a con.
He walked past and went, "You're doing good, kid."
I was delighted to see how elegantly she achieved the very complicated scene.
Flash forward to like 3 months later when we finish a scene and we get out of a buggy and he's like, "Worst acting I've ever seen!" So, you know, it goes both ways.
It's you. No, hey, go home, pal. You're
This
drunk.
is the guy! It's the killer!
Sorry I'm late indeed.
Because we shot in England, we had a lot of terrific English actors, like John Rhys Davies, who was Sala.
Him and I were reading through scenes over Zoom, and he goes, "Jim, I'd love to say, I miss the desert. I miss the sea." And I start scribbling this down.
One of the great pleasures of being an acquaintance with somebody for so many years is the way you can watch them develop. And it's been a real joy watching Harrison become the great star of film that he is today. Rather fun to be back.
He's an actor of incredible gravity, and yet he has this beautiful laugh. and this sense of levity, and he's a great foil for Harrison.
Indy is a very tortured man at the beginning, but we don't ever want him to lose that. Bum, ba, bum, bum. Give him hell, Indiana Jones!
In many ways, the adventure we've concocted is a reckoning between an old school hero like Indiana Jones and a very modern world. And what is that like? That's interesting to me. Does he have one last adventure in him? Does he have the courage to face it again?
Indy's back.
Harrison came in and did his early costume fittings in the original outfits.
It's a short story. It fit.
You're like, oh yeah, it's so indie. It's such an amazingly iconic costume. Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones stepping onto the set. You know, everyone remembers that.
It was unbelievable. There we were standing around and suddenly there's Indy.
Walking out in the fedora and the leather jacket and the whip. I mean, there's no one who looks better in a hat than Harrison.
Morocco's a pretty cool place to be. It's the gateway from Europe to the Middle East and Africa.
Fez is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It doesn't feel like something you've seen time and again.
We get such valuable environments, and I think it's a huge asset.
I've never worked on anything of this kind of scale before, and to be in the real places, it's beautiful. It's got a whole other different palette and energy. And also the 1960s element here is really gorgeous.
An essential element of an Indiana Jones film is that we see the world. It's inspiring us about how much there is to find under our own roof on this planet.
We weren't originally going to shoot here. We had scouted Rajasthan, Jaisalmer, India, and then because of the difficulties of working during COVID, we weren't able to go there. Morocco turned into a really good choice. It's Tangier in the story, but we ended up shooting in Fez, Morocco. There are a few pieces that we're looking for here. The biggest one is really for the second unit, a huge chase sequence. And then we came here and sort of implanted into that unit to get when Indy first lands in Morocco and enters the hotel. We cut back to the stage at Pinewood. We had the whole sequence for the auction inside the hotel.
That set is stunning. Really felt like we'd gone back to Morocco. This was the first time Helena has her own stage and she has the players around her stage. She's auctioning this thing, she's in her flow.
How about 90?
And Indy coming into that absolutely screws everything up for her, which is deeply frustrating. This auction is private.
This auction's over.
Who is this man?
Chaos ensues. So this space is designed for that, to give a lot of opportunities. The starting point for that was the nightclub sequence at the beginning of the second film, how beautiful that sequence was.
Harrison can play with your expectations of an action hero and undermine it, defeat the tropes, the kind of macho tropes. He finds more delight as an actor failing than succeeding.
I think it's very important to maintain a human scale to action. Too much of something is too much. So I think when you're able to keep it to a physical reality with some embellishments, that feels real and more visceral for the audience.
In the middle of that, boom.
Now it's kind of expected that the stunt department shoot a stunt viz of the sequence that's shot, edited, presented as almost a short film. We'll recreate the set, build it out of cardboard boxes, and then we'll shoot it in there and block it, cut it, add After Effects, add sound effects, add music to it, and then we would present it to Jim and he'll give some notes, and then you'll get to the final iteration of what we do on the day.
I think it's a great job. Today is a dream. Our goal was to do as much as we could for real. Almost all the human action in the movie is for real.
Teddy and Helena, they meet with him trying to rob her, and they both are holding onto her bag, and they've had to agree to either both lose or both win. And I think that sums them up perfectly.
we actually made the decision, right, let's start casting in multiple countries.
The requirements changed because the location changed. Suddenly, we were looking for a French Moroccan young man.
You read a character like that on a page and you think there's never going to be a human being that can capture this. And then Ethan turns up.
My name is Ethan Isidore, and I play Teddy.
Jim did a Zoom call with Ethan.
Some days after, the director wanted to see me in England, in London.
He's kind of beyond his years.
I told James Mangold that I love Logan.
He's charming and he's cheeky, and that all just comes across naturally.
And we received a call telling us that I was in Indiana Jones 5.
Ethan is a miracle of a human being.
I love to shoot with Phoebe and Harrison because they are making jokes all the time. We have a special friendship.
We're like besties.
He's absolutely fantastic, this kid. He's never acted before professionally, and he's stunning on screen.
I think it makes the film charming and fun to have a young person in. And Indy being foiled and frustrated by them, that's part of the charm of the series.
Did you know the Wright brothers? I thought maybe you want to school with them.
Oh, come on, Indy. That was funny.
Funny.
The minute Harrison and Phoebe were together, it was unbelievable. The characters came to life even better than anybody had imagined.
When Phoebe and Harrison and I worked on their dialogue and planning the action sequences, something magic happened. The wordplay and physicality depended upon each of them playing off each other.
You just got me killed!
Well, I'm not the one that's engaged, so monster!
It's especially fun for me because there's a dramatic side to it that's got to be real, and then there's these grace notes of humor that she's particularly adept at inventing or supporting.
It's so much fun. I think the irreverence makes it even more fun to play with, and they're both driven by their own agendas here, but forced down the same alleys.
We've been prepping 11 locations out here in Morocco. We had this indoor wet market, which looked brilliant as it was, and then we just came and redressed it with all our dressing.
Hold on, kid!
The tuk-tuk chase is one of the standout action set pieces in the movie, as Indiana Jones should have. We've been talking about this since the very beginning, working also with Dan Bradley, who's our director on the second unit, who's one of the most experienced action directors in the world. What he's bringing to it with Ben Cook, our stunt coordinator, and they're really pushing the envelope.
The old part where the Medina is considered a UNESCO cultural heritage. It's one of the best and the oldest Medina in the world.
We spent weeks in Morocco with these revved up tuk-tuks, smashing down the streets of Fez. It was grueling. Second unit, stunt team, and ourselves, we're all there working at the same time.
The last couple of weeks have been pretty fun in Morocco. I had the pleasure of driving Harrison Ford's tuk-tuk. It's been a real treat doubling Harrison on this one. I would catch myself just walking and I would look at my shadow and see the hat and the whip and I would just absolutely giggle inside. The tuk-tuk sequence, it's very Indiana Jonesy. We got 4 motorcycles and a Jag and a Mercedes all hot on my tail. You would never be able to recreate what they have in Morocco with the streets being so old and weird shapes. They literally found the skinniest alleyways where the tuk-tuk would only fit down and not much else. Driving it feels a lot like a quad and then unstable, so basically it's a triangle, so it wants to fall over all the time.
The tuk-tuk chase is so much fun. It's got so much energy and it's so goofy in lots of ways. One of the things they really worked hard on was giving different vehicles different characters. The tuk-tuk definitely sounds janky and super underpowered. Like, you can't imagine running from anybody in this.
That is very funny.
We can't even imagine driving it to the supermarket, let alone having this crazy chase. So it is struggling the whole time.
We had a tuk-tuk for every role, depending on what they needed. It must have been about 10, 12, 14 of these tuk-tuks. I remember when we actually stood at the top of these steps in Morocco. It literally was just like a waterfall. It just dropped off. And I was thinking, how was anything going to survive that journey?
They're really steep, really short. It was rough all the way down. It was just a hairy ride, ending with a super steep drop-off, which would definitely take out everybody if everyone didn't do their job.
3, 2, 1, action!
My POV of going over the edge was something else. I hope you can feel that it's really steep.
It's a huge undertaking. We're incredibly fortunate to be working here in Morocco. Morocco has incredible support, so it's been a real gift.
Thank you so much, Morocco.
I've had a ball. We've been really welcomed here. It's been great.
It's been fun. It's been really nice.
I've learned so much from you. Thank you so much.
It's always a lure on these movies where we knew that we were going to multiple countries, multiple locations, and we were shooting as much as possible in camera. Even though we do have a lot of special effects work in the movie, Jim didn't want to rely on that. I think that that's something that Harrison responds to. He wants things to be right in front of him. He wants to be in Sicily. He wants to be out on the boat in the real weather. He is a bit of an adventurer himself.
It's not just the shot on the map with the plane, but it's also who are the new people we're going to meet.
I've got an old friend in Greece, an expert diver with a big, beautiful boat.
Ronaldo is a sailor, he's a fisherman. So he's a courageous man, a little bit crazy, but in a good way. Good friend, loyal. And I think at this particular time in the history, Indiana needs that.
Antonio Banderas is charming, funny, hilarious, badass, and a great actor. Part of what we expect from an Indiana Jones film is this kind of tumbling menagerie of unique characters coming at us as they travel the world.
But the first day I arrived here, it was like, oh my God, it's Indiana Jones. I didn't even think about Harrison as Indiana Jones. I got chills. Can I kiss you?
I've been waiting for this all my life.
I've been in love with Antonio for as long as I can remember. Who hasn't? And the moment when him and Harrison met on set and rehearsed for the first time, their chemistry was so glorious and so warm, and that really translates into the scene.
It is time, camarada.
We did an awful lot of digging through various boats. It seemed like a very workmanlike boat, and it kind of suited his character the best.
You're always trying to think almost mathematically, what kind of arrangement have I not seen in an Indiana Jones movie before? And one kind of treasure hunting I felt I had never seen was underwater in a wreck. Just like in a cave, you can have underwater catacombs, treasure, traps, underwater animals.
Quick question, what's that?
In our case, underwater snakes.
Eels. Eels?
The eels are terrifying. The key thing with it is planning, storyboarding out the sequence to figure out where the eels should be in frame, designing what the eels are going to look like, how big they should be, figuring out how quickly they can move.
The movie's fairly snappy with dialogue. There's, 5-10 minute stretch that almost nothing is said because you don't really speak underwater.
The art department's made us this fantastic boat that a lot of the scenes take place in. There's a lot of the world we're building around it from real life reference. Ian did an underwater scout.
When we were in Sicily, the dive site was called Secco del Toro. We were working at 30 meters or 100 feet. We were able to get some very good footage.
Maybe the evil doesn't have a uniform. What are these people? And the evil is inside people.
Nazis.
If you never pull the trigger, nobody's gonna believe you. So actually, my idea was that out of the blue, I should just... Hopefully it's gonna be one of those what just happened moments.
Death is final. If you do it right, you're supposed to be shocked.
When I think about his personality, dying for Indy is a good death. You told them everything.
Word for word. But Archimedes didn't make it that easy. The tomb isn't in Alexandria.
They're heading west, not east.
Sicily came to play because Syracuse was where the Etithacera was invented. And it's where Archimedes lived basically his whole life.
We realized just how much Sicily had to offer.
We've always traveled for these films, and I think that's a big part of what makes them fun. I mean, fun to make, but also fun for the audience.
A place like this that's so magical and has such charm, but also it has such mystery. And so we just suddenly tip up here in these hats, and it all suddenly feels like an adventure.
The suggested temple site where we ended up shooting the temple and the descent down the ravine piece, that was there as well.
The temple here is over 2,000 years old. It's one of the only temples which has never actually fallen down. It wasn't ever completed, and some of the materials that they were using to build it have actually been what's kept it in place. So some of the bracing, which has never been removed, is actually what's helped it to stay upright for so long.
I'm going to be nice about you, okay?
Let me know when you're finished.
Okay. My main note from Jim was, can you just stop smiling? It's really inappropriate for you to be smiling in this scene. You'd be like running down a few rocks and the urgency on your face and then me behind you going, wow.
The Year of Dionysus functions as a formal front door to the cave burial chamber complex.
This was a quarry in the past that was used to build part of the city of Syracuse.
Some echo. Keep making noise till you hear where it's loudest. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba.
There's a lot of plugins in our business where people take sounds and they run them through this plugin and they come out with an echo. We started that approach and we couldn't control the echo. It seemed like it was too much or too little. It was interfering with the dialogue. And I actually literally cut dialogue for the echoes, which we then mixed as an echo.
It went that way.
We are in the real deal, Sicily, and we're shooting all of that. And once we enter, we will end up in Pinewood somewhere. And to make those two things match exactly how I imagined it is, I think it's an impossible task, but they did it.
The sets on the 007 stage are absolutely spectacular. And I mean, I remember looking at the first drawings and talking to Adam, saying, okay, well, so how much of this is going to be us? You know, I'm assuming you'll be building up to about 12 feet high and then we'll be doing it up. Oh, no. We're building all of that. And they did it, and it looks amazing.
We're just trying to work out how the set builds. They'll put a little camera in here and to see if they can get the camera angles they want. It's the river set. This is the water line at 5 foot. And then they're going to make it totally waterproof. Then the special effects are going to pump gallons and gallons of water through in a big, fast flow.
The chambers that Adam Stockhausen designed in the cave set are all different kinds of extrapolations on the thinking and discoveries of Archimedes. All the mathematical figures are all a part of the design of his tomb.
This is it.
These sets actually make that extra magic appear.
There's nothing like a real physical set. It's a relief to have to not imagine things because they're really there, and then you can really get into more emotional details. But Adam builds things that bite you.
Our main work in there is adding insects and creepy crawlies, which you can't have on set either because they're literally too dangerous to do it.
So centipedes are a truly apex predator. They're extremely fast, they hunt down their prey, and they're highly venomous.
Or because they're not very biddable creatures when it comes to taking direction, the centipedes still have to hit their marks, and real centipedes are not good at doing that.
You're not moving.
I'm thinking.
They argue, but what I loved is that the script keeps them equal all the way through. And if any of those barbs are thrown, something just as strong comes back the other way. And really what you see is two old souls, really, who do connect and do understand each other. It's really about how they become friends as much as anything else.
Dad was right. It works.
Archimedes dial, very bold concept. It was a genius choice. Other items that we've used in the other films are always had a religious aspect to them. Shankara stones, the chalice, Ark of the Covenant, But this was fooling with the nature of science.
The moment I knew the movie was about time, opportunities missed, opportunities lost, choices made, irrevocable mistakes, then the question of what would be the only thing that would allow me to fix time itself, and the research that I found about the Antikythera, rumored to be an invention by Archimedes, has been speculated to be a kind of time compass.
I saw it in the museum in Athens. The theories of research have been done that this thing is basically the first computer, way before any clock that had ever existed, certainly any brasswork, clockwork mechanism, which we didn't have until the 18th century, working with this sort of detail. So I was sort of fascinated by the object.
This is where it really pays off to have a little brother who can't sleep and so spends all night reading about things.
With Indiana Jones, he's an academic who happens to somehow get out of scrapes and get out of a pinch with incredible aplomb. The way that God or luck intervenes to save him is really charming and a staple of the character and the way the films work. Stephen and George and Lawrence Kasdan and Harrison all created when they first made this film was a character piece where we give a damn about these characters because we love them. And it doesn't matter whether the world is going to crumble or just one of them, but we love them so much it matters. It is the world to us.
Bring him.
We can't just leave him. We're not.
Fasten your seatbelt, Dr. Jones. There might be some turbulence.
The stuff in the aeroplane was really amazing. I've come to realise that acting with wind, I think, is my favourite part of acting. Hanging out of an aeroplane with wind being blown in your face to save Harrison Ford, I think that's peak. I think that's peak.
Yeah, we don't have to use our imagination that much because it's doing the real thing.
I'm just quite bruised now. Really proud of that one. He has gone to literally the end of the earth to prevent bad things happening to the world, and I think that has inspired her.
What are you doing here?
Rescuing you!
We didn't want something that felt magical because of the nature of the portal and differences in air pressure. The clouds that are in this storm are being pulled through the portal, so we can do some really interesting and dynamic things. It should feel like a natural phenomenon, but one that you've never seen before.
Well, we've come hurtling back in time to the Syracusan War, so that's one excuse to come to Sicily. I couldn't quite believe it. It's one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen.
This seemed like I was making 3 or 4 different movies all in the same movie. I think Joanna's job was really cut out for her. She had to make a full-scale 1944 World War II Nazi war epic, a full-scale New York City 1969 parade, a full-scale creation of Morocco in 1969, then Sicily, and then, of course, she had to create 200 BC in Syracuse.
It's incredible. Every single time period you're in, it just feels like, wow, I've truly time traveled into this.
So a huge amount of craftsmanship's gone into a key sequence in the film, and it was important to the filmmakers that everything looks right and is, of the right period.
Archimedes conceived of a way to harness the energy of the sun on concave mirrors and focus it on warships and set them on fire. An inventor, a brilliant engineer.
Ballista, it fires 1 arrow, a beast of an arrow, 2-man team, wind it back, load it up, you pull that releases, and it throws.
These meteors, Yakita!
I think if most people think of Indiana Jones, they don't think that it's in the supernatural genre. The opening of the Ark of the Covenant, you know, you've got the Holy Grail. That element's got to be there because it's part of the canon. And so there was so much of a balancing act of the concept of time travel.
Although it's really fun to play with narratively that.
Clocks won't be invented for 1,000 years.
So many of the things in the script that Jez and John Henry Butterworth and I worked on was the sense of choices made and unmade. In many ways, Mads Mikkelsen's character is trying to get a redo because he felt Hitler made mistakes. If only I could correct them.
Yesterday belongs to us, Dr. Jones.
It's a quest to try and get a chance to do it over again.
You're off target. Your coordinates are based on markers that have been moving for 2,000 years.
When it starts making sense what Indy is saying, that I overlooked something. There's very little he can do.
Shut up! I'm thinking!
Basically, he can just panic, and that's what he's doing. It's not a heroic end. It's a man who's lost everything, and thank God he did.
Julia!
We went to an old ruin that is sitting on a beach, and it's a Tanara. It's an old tuna processing canning factory. It gave us a base, and we can build some piece of it that can be real, and then visual effects can extend it and make it go on and on.
It's a huge sequence with just about every visual effects discipline.
We've got a hind that we have to make crash literally just over here. The art department have actually designed it from the ground up. We've worked with them and with Previs to put the sequence together with Jim so that we know how the plane's going to crash before we get to post-production. And that's meant the art department have been able to build these sections of crashed plane that will then tie into the impact that we're going to do later on. So we had to do an enormous amount of planning.
You know, it's not just the climax of the movie, it's the climax of the Indiana Jones series. So there's a lot of weight on this sequence.
Indy has been reaching to the past his entire life, and then he falls into the arms of the past at the end of this movie. Just tears sprung to my eyes when I was reading the script. I couldn't believe how perfect it was.
He spent his whole life investigating the past, imagining the past, to find himself actually living in the past. For an archaeologist, is an undeniable opportunity.
Indiana was meeting his hero, as it were. Naz, really a wonderful actor playing Archimedes. Just had this generous spirit that was wonderful.
Prospera. Eleuthus.
I mean, everybody knows Eureka. He was an inventor. He unlocked a lot of mysteries of science, mathematics, physics. He was a philosopher, so it's wonderful to be in that setting and feel, yeah, I am Archimedes and this is where I work, this is my lab. That's lovely.
We're working in an ancient castle. It's a World Heritage Site, so we have to be really cautious, but they've kindly let us work in there, and it's amazing to actually be in Syracuse, where the story takes place.
Signomi, Archimedes, ima fan. The scenes here, Helena's at her most raw. She can't hide behind her wit or badass persona. She's suddenly faced with something she cares about, and with someone she cares about, and she might lose possibly the only family she has left.
She really gets to drive the story, and she's always surprising, and she brings great understanding of a scene and how to wring the most out of it, wring the most out of me.
I need to do this.
Me too.
I never saw a version that had him die or stay in the past. I can imagine them.
I think we knew we didn't want him to die.
He's saved so much in these movies. To see him be the treasure that's saved it felt like it was right.
We all need heroes like him.
You're meant to be here, Indy.
For who?
It's a story that we've both been involved in for 40 years.
I took this character to my heart, and I really fought for her strength of character.
I'm your goddamn partner!
I was certainly hopeful that she would be a part of it.
Well, if this is going to be the last Indiana Jones movie ever made, then you can't do it without bringing back Marion Ravenwood, and you can't do it without bringing back Sala.
Indy, you're up and about.
They're wounded. They're two wounded people.
Where doesn't it hurt?
Here. Well, where doesn't it hurt?
In looking for closure to the emotional and the romantic line of Indy's and Marion's life, it felt like you needed to heal something at the end of this.
Here. It doesn't hurt here.
The idea to replay that scene between them was Jez and John Henry Butterworth's idea, and I thought it was so apropos. Here's both of these characters, older, wiser, probably going to bed a little before 11 these days, but also somehow the beauty of a life lived well is visible in both their eyes.
It was a huge moment. And I think it really brought home the integrity of the whole story and all the films together and what Harrison's done in his performance, because everything that you feel you don't get to see Indy be, the softer side of him, the vulnerable side of him, you see in a moment, in a flash in this. It was incredibly moving to watch.
And by the time that people can see what we're talking about, they hopefully will have seen the film and they will revel in the warmth of the reconstruction of this relationship. I enjoyed doing the Marion theme from the first film and relished the opportunity to bring it back.
She's an essential element of Indy's personality and his life. The breakdown of that relationship is what really forges the character that we know in this film. And to have her back is such an emotional opportunity, I think, for the character and for the audience.
I feel so happy to create this moment for these two characters. You know, it's hard to explain, but from the first time I read Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then when I started working with Harrison, you know, you'd get these sort of strong, instinctive feelings, and I thought, this is the love of her life. Somehow it's always seemed to me that these were kind of, you know, two people who belonged to each other.
And excellence you brought knocked me backward. And so thank you so much.
He took the words right out of my mouth.
Well, Jim's worked to help conceive a story that I think is the appropriate and most pleasurable context in which to wrap up this adventure. We haven't avoided the fact that Indy has aged 40 years. We've embraced it, and we've faced the challenges he faced.
These were all, without fail, inspiring experiences, and everyone had so much fun. It was a movie made without fear, with a great sense of friendship and camaraderie.
It's like getting the family back together, and you instantly reconnect, and you remember the good times, and you have fun again. And that's what it's like making this movie.
Very few movies get made today that are just fun adventures.
The adventure is hopefully what you get on the screen that audience is being part of, and I really was encouraging this fifth film to be made. Harrison felt the same way. When I saw the dailies and then when I saw the first cut that Jim had done, it just felt that this would be a great last hurrah for the character.
I was an open window to everyone. I put my heart, hopefully for everyone, on a platter. Harrison's no different.
I'm not going to miss Indy. Because he's fulfilled his purpose. Just the people that I've worked with